Possible fight of the night coming up this weekend. We have Top Gun Tucker Lutz taking on a man with no nickname. You know him as Philly's own Pat Sabatini. And in this fight, a very interesting one because both of these guys have skill sets that complement each other. However, they have little differences, and that's what makes this one so much fun. And for Tucker Lutz, I figured, okay, he's got the nickname Top Gun. He probably likes Tom Cruise and maybe by extension Kenny Loggins. And then I went to the UFC Q&A that they have at the bottom of the fighter pages because sometimes you get weird, interesting nuggets of info. And for Lutz, he said that no, that nickname was given to him by his brother from the show Workaholics. So I don't know if he's ever even seen the movie. Honestly, I've watched bits and pieces. Maybe that's
pretty good.
Telling of me, if anything. And I didn't watch the Miles Teller one. But when I look at this fight, Matt, movie references aside, Sabatini's been able to do something really special since he ended up dislocating his elbow in that one fight with CFFC. Because this guy is tough AF. And it doesn't take just an elbow dislocation and a comeback not that much longer to tell you that. It's the fact that when he fought Jamal Emmers, he got rocked. Like, Herb Dean would have ended that fight, but that fight didn't get ended, and Jamal Emmers thought, okay, I'll play on the ground with Sabatini. And what happened was, he got caught in a little bit of a leg lock, and he thought it was good for a little bit. And that they were playing around. It was like watching WrestleMania with Shawn Michaels and Ric Flair. And listen, we're in a figure four, and somebody's going to give up with their family in attendance.
But remember, if you turn them upside down, it reverses the pain.
Well, it didn't for Jamal Emmers. It only torqued it even more. Sabatini clears the cobwebs, and he gets the win. And that's what I really like to see in that fight. His chin, I don't know so much. Emmers is a good fighter, though. Let's get that one out of the way, and hopefully he has a speedy recovery with his knee, because I really like watching Emmers fight. I get excited for his fights. Same thing can be said for Sabatini. I was a little leery of the level of competition coming into the UFC. I compared him to somewhat of a Charles Rosa coming in. Some people gave me some flack on that one because they said his striking was better than Rosa's, and his ground game was turned up a little bit. And listen, by and large, I would agree with that now. And I haven't said a lot, Matt, about Lutz. But for him, my big question mark was his level of competition coming into the UFC was bad. 59 and 52 was the combined opponent record coming in. And you look at that and you go, ooh, that's not good at all. So not so great that he ends up having to prove himself twice on Contender Series. Gets the win over Chase Gibson. He was a minus 470 in that fight. Gibson was 9 and 4. Comes back and fights Sherrard Blackledge. And in that fight, Sherrard was a favorite. And you come back with Tucker Lutz at plus 155. He wins that one by decision, forcing the hand of the UFC. They end up signing him. And in his debut, he takes on Angel of Death, Kevin Aguilar. And he wins that fight. And he looked good. Now, Aguilar rallied back in the third round because he was fighting for his life and his job. And he still ended up losing the fight. But for Lutz, he proved some things to me, especially in that fight, too.
Exactly, and this is a really interesting fight because I think both guys have a pretty high ceiling leaving this fight. Whoever wins this, I think, listen, they're not going to be at the doorsteps of the rankings yet, but I think the winner of this, within the next 8 or 9 months, could definitely expect a number next to their name.
You're going to be fighting Lerone Murphy.
Honestly, yeah, like those are the types of matchups that you can probably expect moving forward. Because for Pat Sabatini, it's been an interesting run, and I think we should get this out of the way. Normally when we make these types of claims about fighters, and you haven't signed off on this, so I won't put words in your mouth. I think Pat Sabatini can be a top 15 fighter in the future, but it's been interesting. It's not like he's had a flawless path through the UFC. Like, the Tristan Connolly fight was pretty close, if we're being honest. Connolly had a huge weight cut. No one really knew what version of him we were going to see, and he held his own against a really, really dynamic prospect in Sabatini. So it didn't get rid of all the shine and the allure of Sabatini for me, but it was something that I kept in the back of my mind. I thought about it, okay, maybe he isn't that uber prospect I thought he was, but what he showed against Jamal Emmers is, hey, I can make good decisions when I'm hurt, and that's something not a lot of fighters do. Like, Kevin Lee can't do that, and he's fought for a UFC title. Maybe not the best example I could have gone for, but still, you get the idea. Sabatini was able to at least show a skill and a technique that fighters in the top 5 and in the top 10 of most divisions don't even have. He can clear the cobwebs and still be offensive in a round that he gets hurt in, and that's something that's really important because some losses mean more than others, and some wins mean more than others too. And the level of competition was really good in his last fight with Jamal Emmers, because like you said, I agree 100%. Emmers might not have the greatest run if you just want to look at his resume, but talent-wise, he's a very talented fighter. And if you could beat Jamal Emmers, it leaves a pretty good window open to beating a guy like Tucker Lutz, who fights in a very similar way to Emmers. He's going to throw big power, at least early in the fight. He's going to throw a lot of volume. He can wrestle. It's just when you're wrestling a guy like Sabatini, it's really interesting. He's one of those guys who, if he's on top, he won't immediately go for submissions. He'll really make you pay. He's got good ground and pound from the top position. But when he's on bottom, you've always got to worry because he's not afraid to just throw crazy stuff up off his back. He's not just going to sit back with a full guard and wait for the ref to stand him back up.
I mean, in terms of pure grappling perspective, and I made a giant mistake last week, and I said, listen, practicing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, Thiago Moises. Moises is so much better at Jiu-Jitsu. We didn't get to see any of that. Joel Alvarez decided, I'm just going to dedicate myself to becoming a kickboxer, and he looked amazing in that fight. But when it comes to this one, on paper at least, Sabatini's got those credentials. He is so good on the ground. Lutz is no slouch, and that's where he butters his bread. And if you really do look at it, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu purple belt, trains at Team Ground Control in Maryland. If you want a party favor, if you're sitting down on the couch, this is the point of Fight Night Picks. I want you to enjoy the fights, and I want you to one-up your friends and have little nuggets of information. So when these fights are going on, you can say, hey, did you know that Tucker Lutz's dad owned a sod farm? That's pretty cool. Did you know that Tucker Lutz used to be an HVAC install technician before he became a full-time pro MMA fighter? No, I didn't know that. Tell your buddies that and see what they say. They're probably going to look at you with 4 eyes and tell you to get out and take the beer with you. That's how much they're not going to like you. But Matt, when I look at this one, we talk about buttering bread with a ground game. Pat Sabatini's a butter salesman in this one, and listen, the prices are extremely low and everybody's buying it.
I work at a restaurant, Craig, and I've never met a butter salesman in my life, but I like the example nonetheless. I kind of tipped my hand early because I truly believe Sabatini has that ranked future in his sights. He's been able to show some, I guess, just really advanced stages or advanced techniques for someone so young in his UFC career. Now, I do worry about him against guys on the feet, especially in this division. You brought up a name earlier, and someone like Giga Chikadze, who they've got really good distance on their strikes. They can hit you from very far away, and they make your entries on takedowns very difficult. Those are the types of strikers, the type of matchups that I think Sabatini's going to have trouble with, but I don't think Lutz can go out there and fight with that kind of a game plan.
And I mean, let's give it to Lutz, because if you look at the 5-on-in, knockout win over Cole Presley, knockout win over Trevor Thompson, the last 3 wins are all by decision, but this is a guy that throws with a lot of power, and he's got a squared off stance to where he can really support his base and throw that power. So look out for that from Lutz, especially if you do like him in this fighter. Maybe you're so far sold on Sabatini that you come back in and you really appreciate what Lutz does very, very well. He's a guy that can accumulate a lot of ground time too when things are working out in his favor. The odds for this one, Lutz open to plus 130s, plus 121. Sabatini open to minus 150. Roughly there, minus 149. That's the average that Best Fight Odds have. Matt, the Topology votes on this one surprised us. They are to you. I'm going to say over under 65% Sabatini.
I think they'll be over. I think he's a big favorite. Barely.
Not so much. 756 total votes, 72% Sabatini, 58% by decision, 28% by submission. For the 28% that have Lutz, 76% by decision, and 18% saw the way that Sabatini handled getting hit by Jamal Emmers, and they've got Tucker Lutz to win by knockout. I have Sabatini in this fight ever so slightly, but this is a volatile one coming up.
And Lutz has a chance to really, he's going up a ladder in this game of snakes and ladders in the division, because right now Sabatini is seen as one of those exciting prospects who is only 1 or 2 fights away from getting some of those bigger names. So let's say Lutz is able to go out there, get a big uppercut, knock Sabatini out, then he himself should be knocking on the door of them rankings. But I still like Sabatini.
Big time fight coming up this weekend. Both of us going with Pat Sabatini to get the win, but you let us know down below. Are we wrong? Are we off? Is a Top Gunner going to get the win? And Tucker Lutz, you let us know what you're thinking down below. Make sure you check us out on Apple Podcasts as well as Spotify. You can check out all of these episodes, full-length ones, episodes of Early Stoppage over there as well. We would certainly appreciate that. Keep it locked in with Fight Night Picks. We always say, let's get into it.